Hi everyone. So this week we dove into Gestalt psychology and psychoanalysis. Gestalt psychology emerged around 1910 and was considered to be unconventional. We learned of Gestalt psychologists such as Max Wertheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Kafka. The main idea of Gestalt's thought was we needed to think of psychology as a whole, meaning understanding how we put things together around us with regard to sensation and perception of how we think about things. Gestalt psychology viewed learning in non-behavioralistic terms. So in comparing him to like William James on the behavioralist theory, William James thought that, that our actions were done due to a stimulus and a response. However, Gestalt really dove into, putting together everything as a whole is why we react to things, which I believe is a little bit more realistic than like William James's theory. But we also discussed Freud's famous psychoanalysis concepts. We discussed how Freud believed in determinism. He believed that individuals are motivated by unconscious things and that all these unconscious forces are controlling our behaviors. Freud believed that an individual's life goal was to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Freud believed in the theory of the id, the ego, and the superego. He believed the id was the most primitive part of our personalities. However, this was also our unacceptable thoughts and feelings. He believed that the ego was the I or the me to our personalities, and he believed that the individuals needed the ego to balance the needs of the id and the superego and reality. According to Freud, the ego was where individuals processed and came up with ways to satisfy themselves in an acceptable way. And then finally, the superego. Freud believed that the superego was where the individuals internalized social norms, standards, and ideas. So pretty much it was kind of like our conscious. So this week's takeaway for me is just overall the controversy of Freud's theories and ideas. I've learned about Freud earlier in school, and one of the biggest things I always took about with Freud was his association to children's behaviors and sexual terms. Learning about that at a younger age, that was kind of like, what? But now that it was far-fetched, and now that I'm older and I have children, and I also work with children with developmental disabilities, I can see how Freud's stages can be actually seen in some ways. I could see how he came up with some of the psychosexual stages. However, I feel that these stages are more relatable when you take some of the sexual content out of it. Working with children, I could see how babies do have oral stimulation as they're utilizing their mouth to eat constantly through breastfeeding, through bottling. And then next, you see the anal stage in children. This is when they're about 1 to 3 years old. They begin the process of potty training. So that can be seen pretty easily there. Next, the phallic stage. This can be seen with children from 3 to 6 years old. They do begin to discover the differences between males and females, and they quote unquote find their genitals. Working with children, especially with disabilities, this tends to be kind of a sensitive subject because we're taught not to teach children that that's a wrong when they find their genitals. They do explore things. So it's a fine balance of teaching children that it's not anything wrong. It's just there's a time and a place to do that. And as they get older, they understand it more. But when they're little, that kind of happens. Next is the latent period, and that's from children from 6 to puberty. And this is when children start learning social skills, values, social norms. They kind of start to get their own understanding of what is acceptable or not. And then the final stage is the genital stage from puberty into adulthood. And that makes sense as this is where individuals begin to have attraction to others. It's pretty self-explanatory. So you could see how Freud was onto something. It's just that his concepts were very new, and in that time period, learning to think historically in that time period of how people thought, sex was not really discussed as it is today. sex is way more openly discussed than in the 1920s. So I could see why the controversy was so big. But overall, the takeaway is that we truly see in our field how many of these previous theories and thoughts just paved the road for modern psychology. Even in that time period, it might have been far fetched, but like with Freud's psychosexual stages, it does have a lot of truth to it. It's just that people kind of freaked out with it because it was something new. In the thought provoking reading, if you did that, you'll see how people just totally did not believe in psychoanalysis, and then now it's one of our main one of the main ways we could treat people. So that's my takeaway. Thanks.